The sonar screen showed it clearly, a massive object, roughly 40 feet long, moving through the water at a depth of 430 feet. It wasn't a glitch, it wasn't interference. It was real, solid, and it was ascending. Dr. Helena Ashford had been operating underwater sonar equipment for 12 years. She'd mapped ocean floors, tracked submarine movements, and surveyed deep-sea trenches. She knew how to read these instruments. She knew the difference between rock formations, schools of fish, and equipment malfunction. This was none of those things. "I need everyone to see this," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Right now, the research team crowded around the monitor, 6 trained scientists watching a shape rise from the deepest part of Loch Ness, moving with purpose and power through the dark water. "What is that?" someone whispered. Dr. Ashford didn't answer. She couldn't, because what she was seeing defied every principle of biology she'd spent her career studying. And when it finally surfaced, what she said in that moment would haunt her for the rest of her life. On October 12, 2018, a team of marine biologists from the University of Glasgow conducted what they believed would be a routine ecological survey of Loch Ness. The project, funded by the European Research Council, aimed to use advanced sonar technology to create the most detailed map of the loch's underwater topography ever produced. Dr. Helena Ashford, 38, was the lead sonar specialist. A marine biologist with expertise in deep-water ecosystems, she'd worked on research vessels across the Atlantic and Mediterranean. She was methodical, skeptical, and had little patience for the Loch Ness monster mythology that brought tourists to the Scottish Highlands year after year. "I went in expecting to find sediment, rock formations, and maybe some large pike," she later told investigators. "I came out questioning everything I thought I knew about aquatic biology." The team was stationed aboard a research vessel in the deepest section of the loch, approximately 1 mile from Urquhart Castle. The water depth in that area reaches over 750 feet, deeper than most people realize, and dark enough to hide almost anything. The sonar equipment they were using was military-grade, capable of detecting objects as small as 3 feet across at depths exceeding 1,000 feet. It had been calibrated that morning. Every system check came back green. At 2:17 p.m., something appeared on the screen that shouldn't exist. And what Dr. Ashford said when she saw it would spark one of the most credible Loch Ness investigations in modern history. The afternoon was cold and overcast, typical for October in the Highlands. A light rain spattered the deck of the research vessel as Dr. Ashford monitored the sonar station inside the main cabin. 2 colleagues, Dr. Raj Patel, a geologist, and marine technician Sophie Grant, were assisting with data collection. They'd been sweeping the loch floor for 3 hours, documenting underwater ridges, measuring sediment depth, and cataloguing the surprisingly complex topography beneath Loch Ness. The loch was revealing itself to be far more geologically interesting than expected, with deep trenches, submerged rock formations, and what appeared to be ancient fault lines. "Getting some interesting readings near the western shelf," Sophie said, adjusting the sonar's range. "Looks like a drop-off into a really deep section." Dr. Ashford leaned forward, studying the screen. The sonar painted the underwater landscape in shades of green and yellow, the brightest colors indicating solid objects or dense formations. The drop-off Sophie mentioned showed as a dark void, a trench descending beyond their current scanning range. "Let's get a depth reading on that," Ashford said. "Extend the range to maximum." Sophie adjusted the controls. The sonar pulse went deeper, probing the darkest parts of the loch. That's when the contact appeared. It materialized at the edge of the screen, rising from the trench, not drifting, not floating, rising, with deliberate, powerful movement. "What the hell?" Sophie muttered. Dr. Ashford's eyes narrowed. The object was large. The sonar registered it at approximately 40 feet in length and nearly 8 feet in width. But it wasn't shaped like anything she recognized. It wasn't a log, wasn't debris, wasn't any kind of geological formation. It was moving. "Raj, come look at this," Ashford said, her voice carefully controlled. Dr. Patel crossed the cabin, coffee mug in hand. He glanced at the screen. Then he set his mug down very carefully. That's biologica, he said slowly. That movement pattern. That's not passive drift. The object was ascending from 520 feet, rising at a steady rate of approximately 15 feet per minute. Too fast for a trapped gas bubble, too controlled for debris. The sonar showed it moving in a smooth, undulating pattern, something propelling itself through the water. Could it be a submarine? Sophie suggested. Maybe military. At this depth? In Loch Ness? Ashford shook her head. And look at the shape. It's organic. The edges aren't rigid. She grabbed her radio. Captain, we're getting an unusual sonar contact. Large object, depth 470 feet and ascending. Can you check if there are any other vessels in the area? Any military operations? The captain's voice crackled back. Negative. We're the only vessel on the loch today. What kind of contact? Dr. Ashford hesitated. In her 12 years of marine research, she'd never made a claim she couldn't defend with hard data. But the evidence was right in front of her. Something alive, she said. And it's big. By now, the rest of the research team had gathered around the sonar station. 8 people crowded the small cabin, all watching the screen in tense silence as the object continued its ascent. 400 feet, 350 feet. The shape became clearer as it rose. The sonar was picking up more detail now. What looked like appendages or fins extending from the main body, moving in coordinated rhythm. The propulsion pattern suggested powerful musculature, something pushing large volumes of water with each movement. I'm getting temperature variations, Sophie said, monitoring a secondary screen. Whatever that is, it's warmer than the surrounding water, by about 2 degrees. Warm-blooded, or at least generating metabolic heat. Dr. Ashford started the recording system. Everything is being documented, she announced to the team. Timestamp, depth readings, all of it. Whatever this is, we're getting it on record. 250 feet. The object was now close enough that the sonar could map its surface texture. The readings showed irregularities, rough patches, protrusions, possibly organic growths or natural armor. It's slowing down, Raj observed. He was right. The ascent rate was decreasing. At 180 feet, the object's upward movement became more gradual, more cautious, almost like it's checking the surface. Someone whispered. Dr. Ashford's scientific mind wrestled with what she was seeing. Every instinct told her to find a rational explanation. Submerged equipment, unusual fish behavior, sonar artifacts. But the data was too clean, too consistent. This was a solid object, exhibiting complex movement patterns, generating heat and demonstrating what could only be described as intelligence. At 120 feet, the object stopped. Complete stillness. For nearly 30 seconds, it hung suspended in the water column, as if considering its next move. It knows we're here, Sophie said quietly. The words sent a chill through the cabin. Then the object began moving laterally, paralleling the research vessel at a distance of approximately 60 meters. It maintained its depth, moving smoothly, deliberately. It's circling us, Raj said, disbelief evident in his voice. Dr. Ashford's hands were shaking as she adjusted the sonar controls, trying to get more detail. The object completed a half circle around their position, then began ascending again. 80 feet, 60 feet. It's coming up, someone said unnecessarily. The entire team moved to the portside windows, scanning the dark water. The loch surface was choppy from the rain, grey-green and impenetrable. 40 feet, 20 feet. Dr. Ashford stood at the window, her heart pounding. She'd spent her career studying marine life, but this was something else, something that defied classification. There, Captain Morrison pointed. The water was disturbed about 40 meters off the port bow. Not waves, not wind-driven. A deliberate displacement, something large moving just beneath the surface. And then, for exactly 5 seconds, they saw it. Not clearly, not completely, but enough. A dark shape, massive and solid, breaking the surface just enough to displace the water. what looked like a humped back, ridged and textured, easily 15 feet of it above the waterline before it slid smoothly back down. The rain continued to fall. The loch returned to its choppy grey normalcy. But on the sonar screen, the object was descending, fast, 150 feet, 250 feet, 400 feet. At 540 feet, it vanished from their instruments entirely, disappearing into the deepest trenches of Loch Ness as if it had never existed. The cabin was absolutely silent. Dr. Helena Ashford turned to face her team, 8 scientists, all with the same expression of shocked disbelief, all having witnessed the same thing. She took a deep breath, and then she said the words that would define the rest of her career. I don't know what that was, but it wasn't supposed to be here. For 20 minutes, nobody spoke. The team stood in stunned silence, replaying what they'd just witnessed. Dr. Ashford returned to the sonar station, reviewing the recorded data, checking and rechecking the readings. Everything was clean. No equipment malfunction, no interference. The object had been real, solid, and impossibly large for any known species in Loch Ness. "We need to report this," Captain Morrison said finally. This is significant." Dr. Ashford nodded slowly. "We document everything first. Every reading, every observation, every witness statement. Then we contact the university." Over the next hour, each team member wrote detailed accounts of what they'd observed. The sonar data was backed up on 3 separate drives. Screenshots were taken. Timestamps verified. By 4 p.m., Dr. Ashford was on the phone with her department head at the University of Glasgow. The response was cautious, but supportive. They wanted the team to continue monitoring, to see if the object returned. Additional equipment would be sent, a larger research vessel, more scientists, but Dr. Ashford noticed something in her supervisor's tone, a careful diplomacy, a suggestion that they be thoughtful about how they presented their findings. "We don't want to be sensationalist," he said. "You understand." She understood perfectly. They'd just documented something that could rewrite marine biology textbooks or destroy their credibility entirely. The team remained on the loch for 3 more days. The sonar ran continuously. They detected fish, tracked temperature gradients, mapped more of the lakebed, but the 40-foot object never returned. Dr. Ashford's encounter is remarkable because of its scientific credibility. This wasn't a tourist with a camera phone. This was a team of trained researchers using calibrated instruments, all corroborating the same observations. The sonar data has been analyzed by independent experts. The consensus? The readings show a large, self-propelled biological object exhibiting complex movement patterns inconsistent with known Loch Ness fauna. But this isn't the first time credible sonar contacts have been made. In 2011, Marcus Atkinson, a local boat captain, detected something on his sonar that he described as like a submarine, but moving wrong. The contact was approximately 50 feet long and tracked for several minutes before descending beyond his equipment's range. In 2016, a team using underwater drones reported electronic interference and unusual sonar returns in the deepest parts of the loch. Their equipment functioned normally in all other Scottish lochs. Only in Loch Ness did they experience these anomalies. The most intriguing evidence comes from hydrophone recordings. In 2013, researchers deployed underwater microphones throughout the loch. They captured low-frequency sounds, deep, resonant, organic, that marine biologists couldn't identify. Too large for fish, too structured for geological activity. Some theories suggest Loch Ness could harbor previously unknown species. The loch is connected to the sea via the River Ness, and it's theoretically possible for large marine animals to enter, but sustaining a population of 40-foot creatures in a freshwater loch, the food chain doesn't support it, unless, of course, we don't fully understand what's down there. What did Dr. Ashford and her team really detect? Theory 1. Large fish or eel. The most mundane explanation is a giant eel or pike. European eels can grow quite large, and there are historical accounts of eels exceeding 20 feet. But 40 feet, There's no documented case of any eel species reaching that size, and the sonar signature doesn't match eel morphology. Theory 2. Equipment error. Every researcher's first instinct is to blame the instruments, but the sonar was military-grade, freshly calibrated, and operated by an expert. Multiple screens showed the same data. Multiple witnesses confirmed the same observations. And they physically saw something surface. Theory 3. Misidentification of known wildlife. Could it have been a seal, dolphin, or even a whale that somehow entered the loch? Possible, but unlikely. The River Ness connection is shallow and closely monitored. Large marine mammals entering would have been noticed, and the sonar signature was unlike any known cetacean. Theory 4. Something unknown. This is where science meets the uncomfortable edges of our knowledge. Could Loch Ness harbor an undiscovered species, a relict population of something thought extinct? The loch is deep, dark, and surprisingly complex. We are still discovering new species in the oceans every year. Dr. Ashford is careful with her conclusions. "I can only report what we observed," she said in a recent interview. "A large, animate object exhibiting complex behavior. What it was, that's for further research to determine." But she added something else, something that still gives her colleagues pause. Whatever it was, it knew we were watching, and it chose to surface. That suggests intelligence, curiosity, maybe even communication. 5 years after the encounter, Dr. Helena Ashford continues her marine research. Though she's never returned to Loch Ness for extended study, she's published her findings in peer-reviewed journals, carefully worded, scientifically rigorous papers that present the data without sensational claims. But in private conversations, she's more candid. "I've spent my career studying aquatic life," she said during a 2023 podcast interview. "I've seen remarkable things. Bioluminescent organisms, deep-sea creatures that look alien, behavior patterns we barely understand. But what I saw in Loch Ness was different. It was aware." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think Loch Ness contains something we haven't classified yet. Not a monster, not a myth, just biology we don't understand. Something that's learned to stay hidden, and I think it's been there for a very long time." When asked if she'd dive in Loch Ness, her answer was immediate. Absolutely not. In August 2024, Dr. Ashford received an email from a former colleague, a marine biologist working on a classified project in Norway. The email was brief. "We found something similar in Mjøsa Lake. Sonar contact, same size, same movement pattern. It dove into a submerged cave system before we could document it properly. The caves connect to other lakes. Multiple lakes, some connect to the sea." Attached was a single image, a sonar screenshot showing an object roughly 40 feet long, ascending from depth. The signature was identical to what Dr. Ashford had recorded in Loch Ness. Below the image, her colleague had written, "How many are there?" Dr. Ashford never replied, but she kept the email. And 3 months later, a fishing trawler off the coast of Scotland reported an encounter with something massive that surfaced near their vessel. The crew described it as like a whale, but wrong. By the time Coast Guard arrived, it was gone. But their fish finder had recorded it. Depth, 520 feet. Length, approximately 40 feet. And it was heading inland, toward the River Ness.